I'm Framtid Kvinner. My journey started off tough and sadly ended too soon. As a 16-year-old, I entered a wrestling tournament in Jailand after fleeing my home in Hordaland and disguising myself as a man. During the tournament, I met a man of the Borai fate, where women were the dominant gender, not men. I reached the finals with the Borai man as my opponent. Not wanting to live a lie, I reveal I'm a woman and appeal to the crowd that the Borai man potentially had a point, since I, a woman, reached the finals. Sadly, the appeal landed on mostly deaf ears, and I had to fight the Borai man to the death. Thankfully, a couple men from the crowd, Stierborn and Friedrich, were moved by my speech. They wanted to help me in my cause of getting women treated more fairly in the Norse culture. This led me down the path of wanting to reform our fate to at least allow equal rights. At the bar, I attempted to rally more support, and Aola declared she would be following the Borai fate with me as well. With the small crew, I performed an escort task in Jailand, and Chieftain Ake gave me my first regiment of men-at-arms. I felt spending more time trying to convert people in Jailand would potentially lead to my arrest, so we began our journey southwards, toward the Borai homelands. We take a scenic route to see many world wonders along the way, but our destination is Baden, a Bavarian exclave in Lotharingia. Along the way, I wrestle people, lift up our cart out of danger, and recruit Thomas de Rittencourt in Luxembourg. When we get there, I try my hand at being hired muscle. Sadly, during the contract, Thomas and Stierborn get in a fight. I allow them to duel it out the honorable way, and sadly, Stierbjorn dies. Of course, our chances of pulling this job off lowers significantly, but are not entirely gone. Sadly, though, this mistake cost us dearly, as it gets too rowdy at the final phase, and I accidentally subdued one of the people too hard when I was told not to kill, and they sadly perished. We failed the contract and returned to Baden. In Baden, I rallied the troops with some camp revelry while we gathered provisions for our next journey. I assessed the situation, and after gathering supplies, went to help with the war in West Francia and Rouen. Confused by the intricacies of contracts, I charged to Rouen to help without giving word in advance. By the time we reach, the contract expires, but they offer us a chance to join a faction. However, after accepting and being excited to finally lead an army, I'm informed the faction dissolve, but I am given 5 gold for the inconvenience. Critically low on supplies and gold, after this detour, we accept the only non-criminal contract in range. We head to Aachen in Lotharingia. As we depart, Thomas reveals he has found a bride, Ida, who joins us on our journey. We also find a hungry child that I give the last of our gold to. And sadly, Aola got wounded as I clobbered a nun who called us heretics. We arrive just as our food is running out and receive word of a need to protect some peasants nearby in Count Rainier's land. Desperate for food and gold, I accept. While completing the contract, Rorgan comes in requesting food for his starving camp. Low ourselves on food, we decline, but Rorgan decides to stay and help us complete our contract in exchange for food later. Knowing the desperation for food, I use my snares for some, and then I gamble on some berries and get lucky. We now have lots of new food in our reserves, and we complete the contract. I request some soldiers, and now we have a 2nd regiment, and we return to Aachen victorious. I head to the bar to celebrate and meet a nice gentleman named Dietmar who catches my fancy. I recruit him, but thankfully resisted going too far that night, as in the morning I realized he was hideous. However, news reached my ears about a criminal in Count Gerolf's lands up in Holland. We depart, then corner Earmel and her gang up in Holland. I challenge Earmel to a duel to the death and win. Bringing in her head, I get the contract supplies, but I manage to squeeze a little extra gold out of Count Gerolf. Now we're heading to Turin in Italy to drop off the courtier from the Aachen court that we initially accepted when we arrived in Aachen. We complete that, we restock and then head to Turin. On the way to Turin, we meet a knight on a rambling quest that Thomas previously knew, named Gerald. After talking sense into Gerald, he joins our crew. However, the treacherous weather afterwards on our journey results in a bout of hypothermia for the camp, and Thomas gets bitten by a snake. Thankfully, our newly promoted Dr. Dietmar was able to cure Thomas without issue. We arrived at Turin even closer to the Borai homelands, and for once with a minor surplus in supplies. Thrilled, I travel to the tavern and meet another handsome-looking man named Zadok. I buy him wine and invite him back to the camp, hoping this one at least looks average after the last mistake of almost sleeping with a hideous person. Thankfully, he looks at least average, and I decide to make him my concubine. I train in the training grounds and grow a bit stronger to help in our next contract to protect a bridge down in Nice for Prince Bishop Benedetto. We travel to Nice, and on the way we get jumped, but they are easily defeated by our camp. We start our duty, and Demi wanders into our camp seeking religious refuge. We provide him with refuge and complete our contract for Prince Bishop Benedetto. I manage to convince him to provide me with another regiment of men-at-arms, bringing me to 300 men. We return to Turin and immediately accept a hired muscle contract from Count Gerhard in the outskirts of Lotharingia. During the contract, everyone's discomfort provides the motivation to finally get our main camp upgraded to the next level at half the usual cost because everyone's motivated to work, not by gold, but by comfort. Shortly after the upgrades to our bed, I became pregnant, and then gave birth to my son that I named after me. The contract finishes, and I grab another regiment of men-at-arms, bringing me to 400 men. We return to Turin again to accept yet another hired muscle contract, this one from Count Gerhold. On the way, I learn a new fighting technique, and Sadok, who got promoted to doctor, cures Friedrich after some trouble in the mountains. We arrive to do the contract, and I become pregnant with my second child. And he is born, whom I name after his father, Zadok. He's earned it. Count Gerhold offers me some extra gold in exchange for a favor to be named later, and I accept. Then his courtier Guido begs me to allow him to join us, and I accept. Guido shows me some local cuisine that I mix with Norse spices, and we all discover a new dish we love. We complete the contract without a hitch, and return to Turin under siege. However, I sent word to Count Gerhold to create a grand tournament in my honor. We depart from Turin to Genoa after I catch the camp a bit more food. We arrive in Genoa without a hitch, and I hear word of a war going on down in the southern provinces of Italy. Wali Amelia's lands are being attacked by Prince Goifer in an attempt to take and convert Amelia's people in a holy war. I depart south to Salerno to siege the prince's lands to win the war. With my help, Wali Amelia's successfully defends himself. However, while waging the war, I missed my own grand tournament. Happy I won the war, but distraught I missed the tournament. I decide to take a scenic route to see landmarks as I take my camp to Wali Amelia's lands, en route to the Borai homelands. On our journey, we encounter a bear, which I attempt to fight to save my campmates' lives. But alas, it was too much, and I perished facing the bear. Now the hope of my journey rests on the lap of my 3-year-old son Framtid and my 2-year-old son Zadok. May the spirits guide them and their father Zadok to great prosperity.